Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This episode is brought to you by KPMG. At KPMG, innovation is the go-to state of mind. Their visionary thinkers and advanced technology help you see beyond the now, uncover new insights, and turn them into opportunities. KPMG can help you leverage the value of data and drive transformational outcomes through innovation. To explore their thinking, go to kpmg.us.
I tried to fight all through the night, deep in the heart of Texas. The trailer park is nice and dark, deep in the heart of Texas. That drinks his brew and he spits his chew, deep in the heart of Texas. The TV blares, but no one cares, deep in the heart of Texas. Here we go!
Hey, everybody, welcome to a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. I am Mike.
And I'm Rusty.
And Rusty, I think while doing another podcast with each other, we decided that this was our true calling.
Yeah.
To rewatch every episode of King of the Hill and comment on it, right?
I think it was my calling from birth, actually. Yeah, before the show's inception, I was born and destined to rewatch King of the Hill.
Yeah, some things find us, and we find some things. I think that you are a little bit of both there.
No, absolutely.
So, Mike Judge, creator of King of the Hill, and Greg Daniels, a man of many shows.
Oh, absolutely.
A guy that, I mean, once you do King of the Hill and The Office, you can pretty much hang up your hat and ride off into the sunset.
Oh, easily. Yeah. And then even Mike Judge, his body of work,
Well, that's true.
Just he could have rode off into the sunset with Beavis and Butthead Does America and then been, he would have been revered forever just for that.
Yeah. And then he goes on to do stuff like Silicon Valley and my favorite movie of all time, Office Space and Idiocracy, things like that.
Yeah, prolific.
Just a super funny guy. There's another show that he did that I don't think he gets enough credit for. It's Mike Judge's Tales from the Tour Bus.
Oh,
you ever seen that?
No, I've never seen that. That's a new one to me.
It's on Showtime, and basically it's about different bands or different singers, and he just tells like these tales of them.
Well, he did. He was a musician. He did do a lot of touring in Austin with different bands and stuff.
Oh, there you go.
He was a bass player and stuff.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a bass. I don't know what kind of music they were playing. I imagine it's probably rockabilly, country, probably something like
close
that.
to that.
Rock, southern rock, something maybe.
He basically tells the stories behind the scenes from all these different, like Billy Joe Shaver, and he talks about where he shot a guy outside of Uncle Joe's or whatever that place is around here.
Oh yeah, Billy Joe Shaver, yeah, out in Lorena or whatever.
Yeah. It's a really good show. The first season was country music legends, and then the second season was like.
You don't have to watch that. I like music. I'm really into music.
Second season was like R&B and funk. It's really good.
Mike Judge and R&B and funk. Yeah, that's got to be good.
It's all animated, but Mike Judge hosts it as an animated Mike Judge.
Okay,
so it's very nice.
Yeah, it's crazy him even being in animation to me, coming from his background, because he has Bachelor of Science in physics and stuff, and he even worked in the field for a little bit.
Really?
And so he's got a degree from University of California in San Diego, and that's what he was doing, was just different stuff in the physics world. I'm not sure exactly what, but he was doing different stuff with that degree in that
colliders and things.
Yeah, well, he actually, it was. Now I do remember a little bit. It was a early video card production company that he was working for.
Video card production.
Yeah, and he absolutely hated it. So he only worked there for about 6 or 7 months, and I think that's when he segued to Austin, or he might have already been in Austin. It might be an early Austin company. I'm not really sure. So yeah, they're like segues. Somehow he ends up in Austin if he's not already there. And he starts doing, like I said, music, playing bass and stuff, like doing stuff with different bands and things like that. And then he's in this theater, and he walks past and sees an animation cell just on the wall.
Oh.
And he was like, well, that's kind of cool. So that's when he takes it upon himself to go and buy this 16 millimeter Bolex camera, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how he started in animation, is just walking through a movie theater and saw a cell on the wall. It was
Is
cool.
his first one the one with the guy dancing, the little black and white thing of him just kind of dancing?
I think so. I think that
I saw that recently.
The first one.
It's just like I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's just a guy kind of standing there barely dancing, right?
Yeah,
yeah. And he did every frame and everything. He was talking about animation, and he talks about how most people think it's very laborious, you know, and he said that he enjoys it because you can see how things change, and you know, you're just there with yourself and stuff like that. So that seems like something.
Yeah, absolutely. And
him.
then if you look at him too, he gets like a crash course in it. So if you look at like the shorts for the Milton shorts, which is where you get Office Space from,
right.
which through all this I thought was kind of cool because you kind of find his connection to SNL, Saturday Night Live.
Sure.
Because Saturday Night Live, after MTV already has it on Liquid Television, they air 3 of his shorts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like 90. It was they aired one of them in 93 and then 2 of them in 94. I can't remember which shows they were.
This was MTV cashing in on anything that Mike Judge could do because of Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I imagine at this time, Beavis and Butthead 93, 94 is pretty good, popular wise. You know, it's pretty up there. So I imagine it was, you know, Comedy Central or MTV selling the.
It's definitely
selling
MTV.
the
I don't think
shorts,
Comedy
MTV.
Central was even around at that point. I think it was still Ha.
Oh, it was still hot
Like,
at this point.
originally, yeah, it was just called the Ha.
Oh, okay.
Network,
Because I know
which is
eventually
terrible name.
Saturday Night Live picks up the Office Space stuff, and then they do the 3 episodes, and then I think
Saturday
Comedy
Night Live
Central picks
showed
up
the-
Office Space.
Saturday Night Live
That's what it
showed
was.
the Milton stuff.
Yeah, they showed three shorts.
Huh.
It was just 3 on, like I said, between it was one episode of 93
like
and
the-
2 and 94.
Kind of like the TV Funhouse stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to give him a showcase, you know what I mean? Just showcase
Gotcha.
his talent, and I guess Lauren liked it enough. But also, there's a cool connection with Greg Daniels.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know the Saturday Night Live Lauren thing too, because that's where he actually he starts with Conan O'Brien at the Harvard Lampoon, and then Conan and him go to Lauren together, and that's where they get there. That's their first break with Saturday Night Live.
You know, I've heard Conan talk about that, about those two moving to town together and being roommates and stuff.
Yeah, they went to Harvard.
Yeah.
So him and Greg Daniels were at Harvard together. They were comedy writers for the Harvard Lampoon together. They leave Harvard together.
Which ultimately known as National Lampoon.
Yeah, National Lampoon, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So they leave together. When they leave together, they go to Saturday Night Live together. They do Saturday Night Live together. Well, Greg leaves first.
And they're both writers.
Yeah, they're
on
both
this, yeah.
writers.
Mhm.
So Greg leaves first and goes to The Simpsons.
Oh.
Well, you know, follow suit. Conan follows him, and he goes too. So
Yeah.
that's where they all. That's literally their end of their togetherness is The Simpsons. Because after
Right.
that, Conan obviously goes to the late night stuff,
Right.
and then Greg goes to TV show creation from there.
Yeah.
So that's when Greg leaves The Simpsons, and then boom, he goes to work on King of the Hill with Mike Judge. So back to Mike Judge. So he does the Office Space stuff and all the shorts. Well, he develops in 92, what you showed me was the Frog Baseball.
Right.
So he develops that in 92, and that's where you first see Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Frog Baseball is that little short that I saw at the Dobie in Austin one time, and it was part of a Spike and Mike's Twisted Animation Festival. It was my first, I guess, the world's first exposure to Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're kind of caught up with what got these guys here and who these guys are for the most part. So, being that this is episode 1, I guess we start with the pilot. Episode 1 of season 1 aired January 12th, 1997.
The pilot, yep.
Yeah, and that marks the debut of almost everybody that you see in this series. With the exception of like Lucky and folks like that.
The Hills and then the satellite friends.
Yeah.
They were going to add the Laotian family, so the first episode was supposed to be where you meet the Sufanusin phones.
Yeah.
But they didn't think that was a great way to introduce like the characters by adding characters in while they're introducing characters. They didn't think would be a good idea, so they went ahead and left that for a later episode. But you get your your core base, like people that you see in every episode.
When you look at the number of characters that are in this, I mean, it's basically the stable, the ones that are always there. Hank, Peggy, Bobby, Luann, Dale, Nancy, Joseph, Boomhauer. I never knew that Boomhauer's first name was Jeff, but Boomhauer.
Nobody does. You don't find that out until that very last episode when he sets his ID on the.
Yeah. Bill, Buckley, which is one of my favorites. John Redcorn, Cotton, and then Luann's parents are just kind of mentioned. And then, of course, Anthony Page, who nobody knows who that is.
Yeah, nobody knows who that is.
So
Big boy.
Here's my first so when you start watching this thing, number one, I will say, and this kind of goes throughout season 1 and 2, Hank is way more angry than he is later in years.
Yeah, he does show a little bit more anger, but
I mean,
like
he gets like beat red.
Yeah,
at one point,
beat red,
very angry.
But just like that, I don't want to talk about later episodes that are further out, but even in further out episodes, it's always due to somebody else's stupidity or lack of common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense thing always.
So he's never just pissed off to be pissed off at the world. He's never just sitting there mad.
It's not like Hank gets up on the wrong side of the bed or anything.
No, I feel like Hank wakes up every morning and he's just ecstatic to go deal with propane and pet Ladybird, and
he loves propane.
Love his boy.
The man loves propane, and we do find out in this episode that he sells propane and propane accessories. That's the first time that it's mentioned. So when this show opens up, and it's coming from someone who's watched the series, and I know you've watched it through many, many times, but I have as well. And later in seasons, you don't get any kind of intro or beginning before the credits just come up, the main credit screen. On this one, you get introduced to basically the town. So there's like a wide shot of the whole town, and you're following a mosquito that ultimately lands on Hank's neck, and he swats it away. And then you see that Hank and his friends are all around Hank's truck talking about what's wrong with it.
Yeah, I really like that mosquito, the mosquito kind of introduction, because it kind of reminds me of Forrest Gump with the how the feather floats in. You kind of get like a long shot of the town that he's sitting in on that park bench.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
But it makes me feel like we're the mosquito for the rest of the season, for the rest of the show. So we're like the fly on the wall watching, these people's everyday average lives. We're that little buzzing mosquito on Hank's neck for 13 seasons.
You just kind of blew up my brain there. I didn't thought about that.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. Because I've not only watched the pilot episode now 100 times. Yeah. After watching the show 100 times, but I've watched it 100 times this week kind of thing. I played it on repeat for like an hour just so I get a good feel and hear all the dialogue, because you miss nuances and stuff. And I missed a lot of stuff, like thinking about the mosquito that way. I would have never thought about that when I first watched the show as a kid. But
if somebody could call a qualified psychiatrist, we could probably use one.
Yeah, probably. I probably need one at this point. Yeah.
So one thing that I didn't mention is the intro music and the fast animation up front. That is a band playing the intro music called The Refreshments. They have an album that I am a huge fan of. This song up front, you said you had a little info on it.
Yeah, so they were at a concert, I imagine somewhere in Texas, and they screamed out to the audience or something like that. They're like, well, we're going to record something, or we want to do something for this TV show kind of thing. So just hoot and holler whenever we start banging on these triangles and stuff like that. So the audience started hooting and hollering. Yeah. Well, they send the tape to Fox, and Fox was like, oh, that's it. Boom. flew them out, put them in the studio, recorded it in the studio, and polished
crazy.
it. And I don't know where they get the yell from now, but the original yell for the original recording was from the audience at the concert that they were at. That's where they get the original idea for it from.
They are a very, I mean, they're a rock band, but they're very like country leaning type rock band. You know, they've got some good stuff.
Kind of like a southern rock.
Yeah. And you know, the thing that you and I have talked about before is the intro music. It's not the same on every episode.
No, it's not.
Sometimes it's got the scream, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think this one has the triangles.
Oh,
one at the beginning.
Oh, at the very beginning, they don't have anything. They just have a guitar riff, and then, like you said, they do the pan shot, and then you're the mosquito, and then you land on Hank's neck.
So that's all the refreshments information you'd ever want to have. But there's that, you know, sometimes it has the scream, sometimes it has the triangles, sometimes it has both. This one just goes straight into the music, and then it's got the scream and the, you know, all that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah, and we don't have the trash can gag at this point either. Like we don't get the where they're standing out in the road yet.
Oh
either.
Yeah, you're right.
You know how they do the little fast animation deal at the intro. So the first episode, you don't get any of that. You don't get the hooting and hollering. You don't get I don't think you get the refreshments theme until the very end, really. So when you're first watching it, like I said, it's just the fly-in introduction.
Yeah.
And then you have the riff, which I imagine is from the intro song, but you don't have the full, you know, feel for the intro that you get later on.
Right.
Which makes me think that it is the pilot, you know, of course. So they hadn't really had it all. They weren't expecting to get picked up for 13 seasons.
No, this is just a salvo to see if anybody,
because it was only 12 episodes for the first season. Then you get 24 for the next one. So it was like most shows, you're going to get your little trial period, which ended up being ridiculously successful.
Yeah, it was. So the one thing we do get is our first yips. Instead of being in the alley, though, we get it around the truck. Mm-hmm. So Bill actually has the first line of dialogue.
First dialogue.
Yep. That's about it. And it goes around. Yep. Everybody says yep.
Except for Boomhauer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He always says the mm-hmm.
Boomhauer has a mm-hmm. Now, talking about these characters, the voices are very different in these first few episodes than you get later on down the road. Yeah,
you could tell that Fox didn't go all out for production, you know, voice production and even on the animation. It's not as clean and crisp as you get even in the second season.
Right. And you were telling me earlier that the first 7, I think you said, are all hand drawn.
Yeah, the first 7 seasons are hand drawn. So
first 7 seasons.
Yeah, first 7 seasons, not 7 episodes. The first 7 seasons for 7 years.
Holy
because you got to
crud.
think the show was only made in '97. So you still had hand-drawn animation in 97.
Yeah.
The majority of animation was still hand-drawn unless it was like major movie productions and stuff.
Right.
Like TV shows are still drawn by hand in 2007.
So the other thing about the voices is Boomhauer, not nearly as confusing as the Boomhauer we get later.
No, he wasn't nearly as confusing. And there was less fillers because when he's talking later on, he does a lot of filler. You know, dangle.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that filler,
right.
which he had more direct dialogue, like when he was, you know, discussing Seinfeld, and it's a whole show about nothing. Them New York boys, a whole show about nothing. Yeah. Which the cool thing about his voice and where the development of it comes from.
Yeah.
Mike Judge got a voicemail from something to do with Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
And it was some guy just talking.
Just pissed off about Beavis and Butthead.
Pissed off,
right.
mad about it.
Yeah.
And that's where he got Boomhauer's voice from. He said that the guy was just talking so damn fast he could barely
awesome.
make out what he was saying. And he was like, this would be an awesome, awesome character.
You feel like Mike Judge pulls a lot from actual reality, you know? In all of his stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like a lot of reality
Well,
stuff.
I mean, if you look at idiosyncrasy and then look at reality nowadays and look how, like, you could compare a lot of, like, isms and stuff like that we're dealing with today to that whole movie. Yeah,
I always think of the KFC bowls, you know, where they just pile everything in there. I think of that as the bucket that they're eating out of.
Yeah, the
Idiocracy.
bucket. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we get is Hank coming into Bobby's room. Bobby's listening to his Walkman, which is that's definitely an old tech throwback for you there.
Yeah.
He's like, Bobby, what you listening to? And Bobby says, "Oh, I don't think you'd like it."
Yeah, and then he hands him the headset or whatever, and it's just fart sounds, which is
it's the funny phone jerks.
yeah, the funny phone jerks. It's just fart sounds and stuff, which there's a comedy group that did phone stuff called the
Yeah, Jerky Boys.
The Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
They say that might
That's
be
what this
loosely
was.
what
Yeah,
the homage is there.
Well,
so.
it's like later on you get celery head,
yeah,
instead
celery
of carrot
head,
top.
Yeah, carrot top. Yeah.
So he's
I never thought about that until you mentioned that.
Hank goes, the people on this tape have a medical condition.
Yeah, he said that's not
medical
humor.
disorder.
That's a medical disorder. Yeah.
So he tells Bobby, you got to get ready for the game because apparently Bobby's going to go play baseball, which Bobby does not seem like the athletically gifted type.
No, that's also another name that the title goes by is Bobby the Baseball Phenom.
Ah.
So that was another. So I think it's on the DVDs. So if
Really?
you look on the DVDs, it doesn't say pilot. It says Bobby the Baseball
Phenom. Then we get the family in the car. So we've got Hank and we got Peggy and we got Bobby in the back seat. And Hank is telling him he's got to play hard. He's got to get ready to kick some butt.
Yeah, and he goes, should I play 110% or no? Was it?
He goes, you got to give 110%.
Yeah, and then he goes, well, what about 111?
Well, what if the other team gives 110%?
Yeah, 110, and then what about 110 or 112, and then goes 113, and then Peggy was like, oh, well, 13's an unlucky number.
13's unlucky. It doesn't matter. Just give 110%. Just play your best.
Yeah, he gets really frustrated there. Yeah, for sure.
And so we go to the game, and Bobby's up to bat, and both of them are screaming for Bobby to watch the ball and hit the ball.
The whole time he's keep your eye on the ball.
Keep your eye on the ball.
Oh, but even before that, what killed me is he's at the batting mound or whatever, and he's talking with his dad at bat, and he looks at him and he's like, "Oh man, what does he say?
How are you going to get on base if you don't swing at the ball?
Yeah, how are you going to get on base if you don't swing at the ball?" And he said, "Well, what if he hits me or something? What if he walks me? What if he walks me?" Yeah. We're not trying to play lawyer. Quit trying to play lawyer ball.
Quit playing lawyer ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
So Bobby ends up getting hit by a ball.
Line drive, right in the eye.
Yeah, after he gets walked, he ends up getting hit in the eye with a ball. So Bobby's got a shiner now. The next thing we see is that Bobby and Hank are headed over to Megalomart. This is our first exposure to Megalomart.
Yeah, Megalomart, man, the big Megalomart.
So we get a couple introductions here. We get the Megalomart. We get the fact that Hank hates the Megalomart because he's saying that under his breath. He tells Bobby he's got to stop in and get a tap and die and some WD-40, which if you don't live in Texas and maybe WD-40 is not national, I'm assuming it is, but around here, it's duct tape and WD-40 fixes just about everything.
And if you don't know what a tap and die is, go to Home Depot and go ask.
Go ask Buckley at Home Depot.
Go ask Buckley.
Yeah, so our first introduction to Buckley, who comes to a terrible end at a certain point.
Yeah, terrible end.
Buckley's in the Megalomart. He's an employee there with his big red vest, and Hank comes up to him and asks him where to get a tap and die.
Yeah.
And
that's this is probably my favorite scene from season 1.
Yeah.
And maybe even the entirety of the show is the Hank Hill losing his patience, asking this kid what a tap and die, like well, if you don't know where a tap and die is, he said, well, what if I needed a hammer? He said, you know where a damn hammer is? Where can I find a hammer? Which it reminds me of like my dad. Like going to a Home Depot or something with my dad, it's sure. Like, I know more than you.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
just like walks past them and like, hey, can you find, no, I know where I got to go kind of thing. So that's what Hank Hill kind of reminds me of. He has this like infinite knowledge of like handyman type stuff.
Yeah.
So when he goes into this store, he knows more than this guy, but he's lost the hardware store. There's no mom and pop hardware store that he probably went to for years.
Yeah.
Now it's Megalomart.
Yeah.
So
well, we get a little of that later in later seasons where it's crushing all those little businesses.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Bobby is allowed to bring his baseball bat into the Megalomart, which is a little odd.
Yeah, that is.
They might question that today. But Bobby starts swinging his bat, and he ends up knocking over a bunch of motor oil, and Buckley says, you're going to have to pay for that. And then Hank kind of loses it and yells at the kid about being fired.
You're fired.
He basically fires him.
Yeah, and then leaves. Yeah.
But the thing I found weird about that is he's overheard by 2 ladies that are in the Megalomart. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's that Hank Hill. You know, he really has a temper."
Yeah, and then you get to hear.
No telling how that boy got that black eye.
I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but the lady that does Peggy's Namji, is that how you say it?
Najimi.
Najimi.
Yeah.
So you hear her voice there too, because it almost sounds like Peggy talking.
Well, I think they have about 3 people in the show
Yeah,
that do all
at
the
the time,
voices,
probably,
right?
yeah. They didn't have very many. They just had the core voice acting at this point for all the main characters.
I'm
didn't have any
surprised that Stephen
bits.
Root and Mike Judge just didn't do all the voices.
Yeah.
But anyway, you see those 2 talking, and then it goes to gas pumps where another couple of women in town are talking about Hank Hill's temper.
Yeah.
That is something that you never see again.
No, you never see anything like that again.
No.
There's no like
There's not really ever
dialogue from anybody in the neighborhood or anything.
Well, and the thing is, there's not really any scenes where it doesn't include one of the characters you know.
Yeah.
Like this is 2 scenes with 4 people that you've
Never
never
see
seen
again.
and will never see again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you never
absolutely.
see that happen again.
Right.
Where you get unnamed, unknown
Yeah.
elements, like nothing that I can remember. Well, watching it now, the way we're watching it, we'll probably be wrong. But from what I can recall of the show, I don't really remember another time where you get non-named characters having an impact on like driving the story.
Yeah.
Because they do drive the plot because they're right there, and then they're like, well, somebody needs to report them, and then boom, you switch to Twig Boy with his wrist brace on, putting in all the information in the computer.
Right. You got Twig Boy, who is in Child Protective Services, getting a phone call about that because of this game of telephone that people around town are playing, Hank Hill has now hit his son in the eye with a bat.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that is not acceptable.
Not
That's
at all.
Not acceptable behavior. I've got him in the system. I'll take care of it from here. And he's wearing one of those, I always call them a bowling glove, but it's like for corporal tunnel syndrome.
Like a wrist brace or
Corporal
whatever.
tunnel syndrome. Yeah. He takes that off. And then like you were saying.
Yeah, when he lifts up the little folder with like 3 pieces of paper, and he goes, oh. And then you hear Mike Judge's, it's almost a baw.
That's right.
But it's very high pitched. Yeah, it's like a Californian baw.
That's right. It's a California baw. So we now go to Hank and Dale, and they're talking about, they end up talking about global warming, which you and I have talked about this before, how this show was way ahead of its time in talking about global warming, transgender, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
there's
all kinds of
tons of stuff in here that could easily have pegged Hank as like a MAGA guy or a far right-wing Republican or whatever, but Hank ends up being a centrist throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is his biggest, the biggest thing about Hank Hill is common sense.
Yes.
So he takes a common sense approach to everything in his life.
Yes.
And politics is one of the things he takes a common sense approach to. It's hot outside. It shouldn't be this hot outside. If it gets 1 degree hotter, Dale, I'm going to kick your ass.
If it gets 1 degree hotter, I'm going to kick your ass. All right. So one of the other 2 things that I brought up to you is in this episode, we get the first 2 instances of Dale Gribble running away.
Yeah. So they're working on the truck. And Hank's cussing pretty much at him and
well, he keeps hearing the ball inside too, bouncing off the wall.
He's frustrated with the truck. He's frustrated with the lack of common sense in his buddies that are supposed to be helping him fix the truck. And then he's frustrated because he can't discipline his son and stuff like that. His son. Oh no, we haven't
gotten that yet. No, it's just Bobby inside bouncing
Throwing
a ball off
against
the wall. Yeah, he doesn't know what
yeah.
that sound is. He's trying to figure out what that sound is.
Which I didn't understand why he would be throwing a baseball against a wall inside of your home anyway.
Well, Peggy comes up and says, "Okay, you need to go outside now. You've been inside long enough watching TV." And then some guy starts crying on TV, and she just lets it all go. She goes, "Oh, that poor man.
That poor man." Yeah, like she forgets. Yeah.
But yeah, Dale is trying to help, and he screws up Hank's truck, ends up backing it into his garage door, which we never see fixed or whatever.
Yeah, never see it fixed.
But Dale just like, okay, I got to go. And he jumps over the fence. That's the first time.
Yeah, he jumps over the fence.
And then the second time, Hank is actually trying to fix the truck, and he's hearing the bouncing off the wall and all that stuff. And
yeah.
Dale basically helps close the hood on Hank and beat him up and all this stuff. And then he just like, and jumps over the fence.
Jumps over the fence again, yeah.
That's right. That's right. So then Hank is basically reached his tipping point. You know, he's pretty pissed off at this point. Oh, and before that happens, Bobby ends up hitting his mother with the ball in the head.
Yeah, it bounces and he hits her in the forehead.
Yeah, it was just a complete
mark.
fluke kind of thing. You know, it hits her and gets her a big lump on the head. But that's when we get a visit from CPS.
Yep, you get the visit from
Twig
character,
Boy.
yeah, Twig Boy, eventually known as Anthony Page, but yeah, Twig Boy is where you get him, and yeah, he comes in, sits down, and he starts doing like the interview or whatever with the family,
Yeah.
and then eventually he goes throughout the neighborhood asking everybody about it, and even Dale has good stuff to say about Hank, which is kind of weird because later on you have situations where people are asking stuff about Hank and Dale like slanders him. You know what I mean? The worst best friend to have.
Dale kills his front yard, everything,
all kinds of stuff.
So this is the first mention in this interview of Hank's narrow urethra.
Yeah,
which Hank is not proud of, and asked Peggy to not mention his glands.
Yeah, and then also that's where Hank gets mad, and he says, "Now you listen to me, mister. I work for a living.
That's right.
And I mean real work, not writing down gobbledygook. I provide the community with propane and propane accessories."
That's right. You get a lot of information out of that one little speech where Hank is getting so pissed off.
Yeah, he gets pissed off at bureaucracy, too. He starts, because that's pretty much what he says. He's like, my hard-earned tax dollars go to pay for Twig Boy and the bureaucracy.
And as he's getting a little loud, of course, Twig Boy says, "Mr. Hill, loud is not allowed." And that really pisses off.
Yeah.
Loud is not allowed. Why you? And that's when he kind of goes into his tirade. In the middle of it, this is another very Texas thing that happens here. He says, "Peggy, get me my BC headache powder."
Yeah, honey, get me some BC headache powder. Yeah.
You never hear BC headache powder out of anybody but 80-year-olds.
Yeah, that's it.
It's fantastic. So as the interview guy goes around the neighborhood, he ends up over at Dale's house, and he's interviewing Dale. And of course, Dale's like, "Oh no, he'd never hit his boy. You know, he's very proud of him, and that's all he's got because of his narrow urethra." So he brings it up again.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "If you don't believe me, believe my son. He's his best friend." He calls in
Joseph.
God, I don't know what I can think of. All I could think of was John. He calls in Joseph, and that's the first time we see that Joseph is basically John.
Well, that's all Nancy can think about is John.
Yeah. So he says, "Hey, Nancy, bring us a couple of beers." And she goes, "Sorry, can't, hon. I got a migraine treatment with John Redcorn."
Yeah, then they're standing right at the doors, just running out.
He says, "You've been going to that John Redcorn for 12 years." And she says, "Well, healing takes time."
Yeah, healing takes time, baby.
And it's John Redcorn. It's always Suge.
Yeah, Suge.
John Redcorn out in his Jeep playing Foreigner Hot Blooded as she goes out and whisks away with him. And then you see Joseph and you realize, oh crap, Joseph is
Joseph
John Redcorn's son.
Yeah, John Redcorn's son. Yeah.
That's right. So you get like on the information about these characters is like with a fire hose at this point.
Yeah,
because it's
just
oh my God, it's all this information.
You get a lot of information, and then like we were talking about. Well, Greg Daniels' influence on the show, you get like the conspiracy theorist nut that Dale is. Dale at first was supposed to be just a toothless, slack-jawed redneck.
Really?
Yeah, he's supposed to just be. I mean, that's what pretty much everybody around Hank was supposed to be before Greg came in. So you had Boomhauer, you had Bill, and those are the only two that existed at that time. And you had Dale as well, but they existed as just satellites, redneck satellites that weren't even really supposed to as strongly developed as Greg helps with. So Greg takes that experience from writing with Saturday Night Live and fleshing out characters there, and then he went to The Simpsons and fleshed out characters there. And if you look at his influence on The Simpsons, back in the early seasons of The Simpsons, there was always a morality to the end of every episode, which it loses eventually. You lose that in The Simpsons. But there was always some kind of like message, which you get in King of the
You
Hill.
never lose that in King of the Hill. It's always there.
It's always there, and that's because Greg Daniels never leaves The Simpsons.
Yeah,
or King of the Hill.
King of the Hill.
He stays in King of the Hill in perpetuity till the end.
The other, and sorry, a little side on Greg Daniels, but I know that The Office was based on the UK Office, but there's got to be a little bit of Dale in Dwight.
Oh, absolutely.
Those two characters. He is kind of the
nut. He's the far out there nut for sure. I wouldn't even call him far right. He's just far nut.
So Twig Boy goes and interviews Boomhauer, and Boomhauer tells him all about dogs barking. He thinks he's there to take care of the dogs that are barking in the neighborhood. But eventually, Twig Boy is walking out of the neighborhood, and Bobby and Joseph are in, I guess, Bobby's backyard, and they're talking about Hank and how mad he got, and he said, Bobby says something like, "Oh, my dad loves me. He should have heard what he said to that Twig Boy. He said, 'Get out of my house. My boy ain't much, but he's all I got.'"
And that's not even what he said. That's what's so funny. He didn't even say that at all.
He's all I got.
Yeah, that's funny.
And so Twig Boy overhears this and overhears what Joseph said, and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to take this kid away." He thinks he has to put him in CPS because
well, I could put you in a nice house in North Arlen.
Right. He comes back with him, asking him if he wants to be put in a nice house.
Watch us fight all through the night, deep in the heart of time. Steak so damn nice, they gave it 1 star. So.
Let's see.
Well, to touch on Arlen a little bit. So the cool thing about that is it's actually based on a suburb of Dallas.
Yeah.
So Arlen sounds like Garland, and I want to say that's a area that Mike Judge lived in, was around the Garland area, but he actually based it on Richardson, Texas. That's actually where Arlen is based on, like the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So if true, like I could see even in our area where we're at, Mike, I could see these neighborhoods. Like you could drive, 2-3 minutes up the street and see these neighborhoods.
100%. Yeah. This is it's a very Texas show. If you're not from Texas, that's what kind of amazes me about how it became, this sensation, and how it went on for as long as it did. You would think it would be very Texas oriented as far as watchers and stuff goes.
Well, Mike Judge builds the skeleton, but without Greg Daniels fleshing it out.
Sure.
It wouldn't, because one of the research methods that Greg uses, even for The Office and Parks and Recreation and stuff like that, he makes people go. He makes his writers go. Like, hey, you go and check out what it looks like to be in a local government for Parks and Rec, or hey, you go sit in an office space, and I've got a guy that's going to let you go and observe, an office kind of thing. So that's what I think is really, really neat about King of the Hill, and how they actually went to the neighborhoods and kind of went and sat in like cafes in these little, areas, and walked these streets and stuff to get all this like research for these shows to make it feel so intimate. It feels like people, like we've discussed. It feels before.
Familiar.
Yeah,
very familiar.
Like any neighborhood that you've ever been in, kind of thing.
So talking about how we're getting fed from a fire hose here, the other thing we get is the backstory for Luann, why she's at Hank's house and all that, because she is his niece. She says that Mama's back in jail because she was saving a quart of beer, and then Daddy went after her with a fork, and the trailer turned over.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, is that the trailer humor goes so far that they even get into a fight so bad that the trailer itself actually falls over.
and the cool thing is we get a callback on that way down the line as far as the trailer turning over.
Oh yeah.
Because years later the trailer is still
tipped over, and Hank and them go to tip it back over to put her in it. That's a tornado episode.
Yeah. So we get that. We get Twig Boy showing up and trying to convince Bobby to come with him. Hank yells at him again, and then he chases him off. And again, this is Lady Bird barking at somebody, which is a weird occurrence because you only get that like 3 times in the whole series.
Yeah,
Lady Bird's
she
usually
doesn't bark at him.
Yeah.
And we find out later on that she only barks at things that make Hank uncomfortable.
Yes, very much so.
Like California bureaucrats or repair guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we kind of fast forward a little bit to Bobby taking advantage of the situation. Phone call. Well, first we see in the CPS office the supervisor and Twig Boy sitting together. They're having a meeting about this.
And he says, and Twig Boy says, well, he got hit with a baseball. And the first thing that guy says is, well, did you talk to so-and-so?
Yeah, the Little League coach.
He said, well, who's that? The Little League coach.
Yeah.
And he's like, gulp. He does that big gulp.
Yeah.
Well, no, I didn't. And then that's when that guy picks up the phone and
he said,
Bobby conveniently answers it. And
he says, where are you from again?
Yeah, where are you from again?
L.A.
L.A.
Yeah.
Yeah, L.A. I like how he says L.A. L.A.
But then he calls the Hill House, does the supervisor, and says, okay, the whole thing's called off. The Twig Boy's going back to L.A. We're sending him back to the L.A. office. And Bobby uses this information to his advantage.
Yeah, it takes advantage of that situation for sure. Yeah.
Peggy and Hank come in. They ask him who was on the phone. He goes, oh, it was the wrong number. And then Bobby decides he's just going to go all out and be a complete twerp.
Oh, and he doesn't
Hank
just
off.
go all out. He goes like at one point he's sitting in the driveway with a stop sign and a drill.
Yeah,
like he broke a stop sign off and he's sitting in the driveway just drilling into it.
He and Joseph are they're moving a extension cord for Hank, and he gets the garage door opener and he's playing with it. Up, down, up, down, up, down. He's pissing off Hank, and he says to Hank, your hostility invalidates our parent-child contract.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, there is no better way to piss off Hank Hill than for his son to say, your hostility invalidates our parent-child contract.
But that's the funny thing about all that hostility and stuff like that is that's the reason why Hank has so many internal issues that we see develop is because of his relationship with his father and how strained it is. Yeah. So, like, we learn so much about, like, because there's even an episode where Hank can't even shoot a gun. Yeah. But he's like this Texan, so it's like this super like taboo thing that he can't shoot a gun.
But it's all cotton.
But it's all cotton.
Yeah, he's talking to Peggy at this point, and he talks about how. Well, actually, no. First, what happens is you see. Bobby just kind of going nuts, doing all this stuff, and Hank trying to not get pissed off at him because there's people walking around and they're overhearing it and things like that. Because Hank at this point doesn't realize that the investigation has been called off.
Yeah, nobody knows at this point. Yeah, right. Peggy doesn't even know at this point.
I will say there are 2 things that happen in this time that I really got a kick out of. One is Hank making a bacon and bacon grease sandwich, which is fantastic.
That's Southern.
He bypasses the mayonnaise and just uses grease.
That's Southern.
On white bread.
Bacon grease on bread? No,
it's
love
just,
it.
It's just white bread, bacon grease, and bacon.
You don't
That's
do
the
that?
whole
You've
sandwich.
never done that?
Man, I don't know that I've ever put bacon grease on bread.
Well, next time you make some bacon,
you got
and
it.
Even if you don't put the bacon grease on the bread, just dip it in the bacon grease and eat the bread.
I'm going to go ahead.
Awesome.
I'm going to go ahead and get my tombstone ready. And
get it ready.
And then I'll eat some of that. Yeah, that'll be great.
Get a heart surgeon on standby.
and then Luann comes in and says, Uncle Hank, I went in to use your truck this morning. It wouldn't start. So it was a clogged fuel pump. I went ahead and fixed it. So this is where we get Luann may be smart and just in a dumb package.
Yeah, well, I think it is. It's almost a joke that she's good at working on cars because she's from a trailer park.
Yeah.
She's from this trashier side of the Platter family.
Yeah. There's a great quote coming season or 2 later about trailer parks and stuff, and I'll wait to
the trailer park humor, like whenever they do explore the trailer park humor, especially when Lucky comes in, and you get a lot Tom of it when Lucky comes in.
Lucky's a whole different.
I know Lucky's a whole different thing. He's a whole different thing. He's funny though.
And God bless Tom Petty.
From the host of the popular podcast, The Only One in the Room, Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins is a propulsive and vivid memoir about the journey to sobriety and self-love amidst addiction, privilege, racism, and self-sabotage. Best-selling author Holly Whitaker calls it an irresistibly delicious story, and MacArthur Foundation fellow and best-selling author Kiese Lehman says Stash is emotionally riveting. Buy Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins now, wherever books are sold.
Looking to start a business? You'll need a registered agent to receive legal notices and documents on your behalf. Look no further than Universal Registered Agents. Our team of professionals will ensure you never miss an important document, and we can even help you form your business with services like entity formation and document filing. Plus, we'll help you switch to our service for a lower cost and pay the change fees. Trust Universal Registered Agents to help your business succeed. Contact us today to learn more.
As if the McCrispy couldn't get any better, Bacon and Ranch just entered the chat. The Bacon Ranch McCrispy, available at participating McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Okay, so as Bobby's going nuts and pissing Hank off, we hear the second Refreshments song. This pilot came out in 1997. Refreshments had a song called Down Together off of an album that came out in 1996. And it just made me very happy to hear this thing playing in the background.
Yeah, see, I didn't see it. You know that band, so you were able to pull that out.
Yeah.
I never even heard that. Like, I just thought it was just the Refreshments just doing a little whatever in the studio. I didn't know it was an actual song of an album that came out a year before the show.
Well, they don't even play the whole song, and so it's almost like just background music. They just pick something off an album and went, hey, let's use that. Yeah. But here is where Peggy finds out that she gets another phone call from the CPS office, making sure she got the original information. So she confronts Bobby, and Bobby says, "Well, I've been doing this because I don't know if Dad loves me. I can make him love me even when I screw up this way." And so that becomes a big deal. And Peggy goes to Hank and says, hey, listen, I don't think Bobby thinks you love him. And so that's why he's doing all this stuff. And that's when Hank has the flashback to the cotton incident.
Yeah. Because, Peggy comes up, tells him you can relax. The investigation's been off for a week.
Right.
And I'll kill him. Right. That's like the first thing he says.
Well, she says, do you love him? He goes, of course I love him. She goes, well, the investigation's off. Well, I'll kill him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's within a
he
breath.
Says, it's hard, Peggy. I don't want to lose my little boy. Yeah,
That's right.
My only son.
Yeah, and so she convinces Hank to go out and talk to Bobby and tell him that he loves him. And Hank comes out. Bobby, I always love the scenes where they're sitting on the patio furniture, like, through the sliding glass door. Hank's cooking something or whatever. A lot happens right there in that backyard.
Yeah, between Bobby and Hank. There's a lot of Bobby and Hank development in the backyard.
It's where Bobby smokes all his cigarettes.
Yeah, they start smoking cigarettes together, yeah.
But, Bobby is sitting at the patio furniture. Hank comes out and he's stammering and hemming and hawing. And, the one thing I noticed is Hank's not wearing any shoes, which is weird for Hank.
Which is weird for Hank.
Yeah, he's in his sock feet, which is really odd.
The funny thing to me is how hard it is for Hank to even show emotion to his son.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he literally is, he goes, whenever he's trying to talk to him, he's like, he makes some weird noise.
It's almost like
weird noise, and he goes, hell, that's a weird sound. I never made that before.
It's almost like he's asking out a girl on a date or something.
It's just so uncomfortable for him.
So hard. And then he says, damn it, boy, I love you, or something like that, right? And Bobby's
damn it, you're my boy. Yeah,
that's right. He goes,
punched him in the shoulder. Damn it, you're my boy.
He goes, you're not embarrassed by me. Damn it, you're my boy.
Yeah,
punches him.
You're not a
shoulder.
disappointment. You make me proud. Yeah, and then that's funny because right after you see Hank kind of like slug him a little bit, just playing around, you see the bus go by.
Yeah.
And there's Twig Boy sitting there.
Twig Boy's on the bus.
He's sitting next to this big old country guy with a hay straw in his mouth. And he goes, did you just see him punch him? I knew I was right. What are you talking about, Twig Boy?
What are you talking about, Twig Boy?
Yeah. And then Scene. Yeah, it was awesome.
It's a great episode.
Great episode.
Great way to introduce all the characters and everything. The one thing I did want to talk about here at the end is you see this, and later episodes, they flesh it out a little bit more, but you see the title card come up at the end after the credits. And there's 3 production companies: Deedle D Productions, Judgmental Films, and 3 Arts Entertainment. And then later on, you have selected quotes from the show or whatever that play whenever you see this card.
Yeah,
like
they'll have
Dale,
like right before the 20th Century Fox sound or whatever. You have like some
Dale's
random
saying
quote.
something, or whatever. But just to kind of cover these things, Deedle D is Greg Daniels' production company.
Okay.
And Greg did, of course, The Office, Parks and Rec. He does a show currently on Amazon called Upload, which I was not a huge fan of. And then he also is producing Space Force for Netflix with Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. I wasn't a huge fan of that either.
Still not a great show. There is one scene in Space Force that makes me
When I first watched it, it was
laugh.
pretty funny. The first episode was funny, and I thought it was a good premise or whatever. But, I mean, it's hard to recapture.
I will say, though, there is one part of one episode that harkens back to Office, King of the Hill, everything.
Yeah.
It's when they send that monkey into space and the monkey ends up eating the dog.
Yeah. That's
fantastic.
That is fantastic. That is pretty
The
funny.
monkey eats the dog, and then the monkey is just like flipping around and flying everywhere.
Yeah.
That's one of the best. Yeah. But anyway, Deedle D is Greg Daniels. Judgmental Films is Mike Judge's, and of course we've kind of talked about him, but. Beavis and Butthead, Silicon Valley, which Silicon Valley is a fantastic live action show, and then Tales from the Tour Bus, amongst many other things, of course, Office Space and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get to 3 Arts Entertainment, and 3 Arts is a bona fide production company because they have produced an enormous amount of stuff. And so you have to.
They're probably like the big production house that Fox uses for whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Well, 3 Arts has done movies and TV.
Oh, so they've done other stuff.
Oh, they've done so much.
But are they attached to Fox though? For all the stuff you're talking about, is it all Fox Productions?
No. It's all over the place.
It's all over the board. Okay.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking, and this is just me thinking this, but I'm assuming that 3 Arts was the actual production company on this, and this is where Deedle D and Judgmental Films get their start. Basically, they become production companies because they're helping, do
produce
all
the show.
It's kind of like somebody. It's kind of like somebody being an executive producer the first time or something like that.
Well, kind of like the David Letterman stuff on the other podcast. Yep. How all that kind of starts. Yeah.
So it's a wonderful episode. It's a great intro to this whole thing.
Yeah. I had a couple of cool things to add here.
Yeah, please do.
So you have a director on this show for the pilot. First, I'll talk about the pilot. So whenever they pitched this show, the pilot wasn't the pitch. The pitch was a pencil-drawn test, which is a pencil test of Hank selling himself.
Oh, yeah.
So what I think is so neat, how they sold the show.
Watch that.
Yeah, I have the link. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So the pencil test is Hank Hill selling himself to the Fox executives to tell them why he would make a great character for a show, which I thought was so ingenuitive. Like, usually the way I see somebody pitching something to a company to create a show is here's a full script.
Sure.
There
might be a presentation, the whole thing, yeah.
Maybe even a reading with people that you've already got like secured for the show kind of thing, maybe even a live reading for them or something. But I would never ever think that to pitch an animated show, they would use the animated character to pitch himself to his own show. Well, another fun fact on that, we go to the direction of the show. There's a guy named Wes Archer who ends up being the supervising director for the show from 97 to 2009. He leaves for a little bit to go try something else, but he comes right back like after a season, and he's pretty much with them for the rest of the show all the way through that point. But the cool thing about him is he starts off, he was with The Simpsons for like 7 seasons. And then he goes on to do a little bit of Futurama. And then, of course, he's with King of the Hill. But the cool thing about him really is he does Bob's Burger, Rick and Morty. Like right now, he's like the consulting or supervising director for the Rick and Morty show or whatever. So I really thought it was neat that, again, this web of comedy that we keep discussing over all these podcasts we're doing, and how intertwined everybody really is. Like, you know, like even the SNL connections, where Mike Judge even has a connection to SNL, and you know, it's just crazy to see all these connections, which leads into hopefully maybe another podcast
on comedy
history.
So in this episode, there's a couple of errors, and I'm pulling these from fandom.com.
One of the errors that it was Joseph's shirt, and that's one I picked up without even seeing that.
Yeah.
At one point, his shirt is like blue or something, and then it's yellow, or it's yellow, then it's blue. I can't remember, or green.
Right.
It's like yellow and green or something.
You know what I didn't think about is I think I said something about Hank's garage door, and this is when he's fixing it. I didn't realize that that's what that was until I just read this. He's fixing the garage door from when Dale wrecked the truck into it.
Oh yeah,
I didn't even pick up on that
Yeah,
until we were talking about
and
that.
that's when he was hitting the garage door thing. Put it back to its factory preset position. Yeah.
So Bobby and Joseph are out there helping him fix the garage, and like you said, his shirt's yellow, but then when they go in, his shirt goes back to green.
Yeah.
Luann says Hoyt was arguing with Leanne, meaning he was there, but in later episodes he's in jail and has not seen Luann since they were young kids. And so that's one.
And then there was another one that I remember too. So when Bobby's at bat, he doesn't have a hat on,
right?
And then the camera
he's got a batting
off of
helmet,
him, and then it goes back to him, and then he has a baseball cap.
Yeah. But you know what? In the large scheme of things, that ain't bad. That's
not bad.
No,
and that's what Greg Daniels really does on this show. That Fox had asked for a show that doesn't have a lot of continuity. That way they could show stuff in syndication and you didn't have to watch the whole show to know what was going on.
Sure.
But if you watch King of the Hill, there is a lot of plot development. There's a lot of character development. There's a lot of emotional stuff that's not really supposed to be there per what Fox
there really
wanted.
is, yeah.
But they were able to do it in such a clever way that it worked.
There's even cliffhangers later on.
Oh yeah, cliffhanger episode.
Because like the one where she jumps out of the airplane and all that.
Yeah, it's like a 2-part.
That was the end of a season thing, I believe.
It was.
And then when they
it
came
was
back,
at the end of one season. She hits the ground and then boom, that's the end of the season. And then they come back and then she's all
she's in a
like,
body
Peggy's
cast.
dead. What? I remember that. I remember in the newspapers and stuff.
That's right.
Peggy's dead was
dead.
like a highlight that they used.
So in this we had Mike Judge. He does Hank Hill and Cotton Hill. We have Kathy Najimy, who, of course, people know from
Hocus
Pocus and numerous other things.
Stuff, yeah. She was in Hocus Pocus, and she was in Sister Act.
Yes. Pamela Adlon, who great comedian in her own right. She does Bobby Hill. Brittany Murphy, who's passed since.
Rest in peace, yeah.
Did Luann. Those are your big ones. And then you start getting into like Stephen Root doing Bill and that sort of stuff. But those are your main folks, and those are definitely the ones that are referenced here on Fandom.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing for me is that before we started the podcast, you had an announcement. Boom. Oh, well, King of the Hill's back on Adult Swim.
Yeah.
And then I was scouring through Reddit AMAs. Well, there was a Reddit AMA with, I want to say it's Stephen Root, if I'm not mistaken. But there was an AMA with somebody, if it's not Stephen Root. And they were asking, one of the questions that one of the Redditors asked was about a development of a new revamped King of the Hill.
Yeah.
And this is March of 2021. So
yeah,
we're only a year, less than a year out from March 2021 of the discussions of a new show, and the excitement that came from whoever it was that was affiliated with the show that was doing the AMA, the excitement they showed in all caps. He said Mike Judge and Greg might get pissed off at me. He said, but definitely it's in the pipeline.
Yeah. So what I've always heard is that Mike Judge is willing to do it, but he wants all the characters at their current age.
He wants to age everybody up.
Fan-friggin-tastic.
Which is fantastic. It does, with Tom Petty rest in peace Tom Petty, with Tom Petty being passed, and rest in peace Brittany Murphy with her being gone.
Yeah.
Like how they handle certain characters would be interesting to see how they do.
I mean, I think you could do it with different people, but because think of all the people that have done Bugs Bunny's voice and all of that kind of thing. I mean, in animation, it's a little easier to replace characters like that.
I agree that you could do that, but you can't fool me.
No,
Bugs Bunny.
No, I get that.
You won't be able to fool.
No, that's true.
So I feel like to keep it in the essence of everything, that they'll have to write them out. I mean, it's hard or put them somewhere else to where they don't pop up in the show physically. They could be mentioned and discussed and talked about, but to have somebody else do Luann or Lucky's voice, or hell, even Buckley in the Sky's voice, you know what I mean? Like
just real quick, let me give Stephen Root his due.
Okay.
He is one of my all-time favorites. As far as a comedian or an actor, he is a guy that every time he shows up, he makes things better. Mm-hmm. News Radio. He was the boss on News Radio, which I absolutely loved News Radio. When Phil Hartman died, it was one of the saddest things because Phil Hartman was such a great guy.
Funny guy.
Never a bad thing said about him.
Yeah,
and it was really, really sad that he passed. But, Stephen Root has been in things like Finding Nemo. He was on Just Shoot Me. He was in Ice Age.
Oh, he was on Just Shoot Me?
Yeah, just one episode, but he was in that.
Okay.
He was on Grounded for Life, which also was a very good show.
That was a great show.
He was in Dodgeball.
Is Stephen Root the grandfather in
Grounded for Life?
Yeah. Not the grandfather. Who is
Tony Bustamante.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he was in Dodgeball, which is a great movie. He was in Kim Possible. So he was a voice on Kim Possible.
Wow.
Yeah, that goes back to some of your stuff. West Wing, he was on that. He was he's been on American Dad, which we won't say anything about that.
Well, that's funny about American Dad too, is because American Dad, the one of the top guys for American Dad is also a King of the Hill alumni.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's that intersecting.
As far as an actor, he was in No Country for Old Men. He was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? My absolute favorite, he was in Office Space. He is Milton from the Milton Shorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the guy that wants the red stapler.
Yeah.
He was in Drill Bit Taylor, which a lot of people will remember. He was on the Sarah Silverman show. Pushing Daisies, which was on
I don't know what people
HBO,
would remember Drill Bit Taylor, but yeah,
well,
I guess there's somebody out there that remembers it.
King of the Hill, of course, 24. I'm just reading down his
Wasn't
list
that
here.
Owens that was in that, one of the Owens brothers?
In what, Drill Bit? Yeah. Batman animated series. He's been on Children's Hospital, which that's a whole thing in and of itself. Let's see what else we've got. The Good Wife.
He's in a slew of stuff.
I mean, good God. He was on the Cleveland Show also, by the way.
Wow.
The thing that ended
so
up
Hank.
replacing King of the Hill.
So is Hank. That's what's funny is
you
Hank
said
is
you were
in the
gonna...
Cleveland Show, yeah.
And then he was a character on Boardwalk Empire also, which wonderful show. Great
that's
show.
The one with Steve Buscemi, right?
Yeah. That's the Steve Buscemi show. That was really good. He was in Justified, which also was a very good show. Hot in Cleveland with Betty White and all that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, it just goes on and on. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Big Bang Theory. I mean, this guy, Workaholics.
Yeah, TV.
Gravity Falls. I mean, this guy, he's a legend, honestly, for all the stuff that he's done. He's on Adventure Time. Mr.
And he starts with King of the Hill, right?
Mr. Pickles.
Oh, he's Mr. Pickles?
He does a voice on Mr. Pickles. No, he's the plantation owner.
Oh, wow, Mr. Pickles.
Yeah. And then, of course, I think the thing that I've seen him the most in here lately is Barry, a TV show on HBO, where he's Monroe. He's kind of Barry's boss. Barry is a trained killer, and he's Barry's boss. It's a very good one. He's in Man in the High Castle, which also another Amazon show. He's on
it's a good book too.
The new Perry Mason. Good God! I mean, I keep thinking this thing's going to end. It just doesn't.
No, he's active. So he gets his start with King of the Hill, right? That's like where his whole life starts.
Man, no, honestly, he's been in so much stuff. It's not even funny.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. RoboCop 3. It's in RoboCop 3. Head of the class. Wow. How far does that go back?
That's way back. Yeah. I guess he's prolific as can be then.
He's a very...
he was big before Mike Judge called him.
Very prolific guy. I don't know exactly where he's from. I didn't read that part of the IMDb, but he is absolutely one of my favorites.
There was somebody that had called to do Dale Gribble. Can't remember who it was now. I wish I did.
Right.
But I remember whoever it was somebody that was a bigger star. And when they called him up, he was way too expensive for him.
So here's my goal with this show, right? Is number one, and then I'm talking about this podcast. Number one, we're going to get through every episode. Right. And we're going to break down each episode just like this and just talk about them. We are now at minute 57 for a 22-minute show, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from one of two people.
Okay.
Well, three. I mean, Mike Judge would be the ultimate if we could get Mike Judge on the phone. The other one would be Stephen Root, which that would be mind-blowing for me because I have always been a fan. He's the best. The third one, and maybe the one that's most obtainable, is Johnny Hardwick. Johnny Hardwick is the guy who did Dale Gribble, and he still does stuff on YouTube. So if you're listening, Johnny Hardwick, which we will tag you in all this stuff.
Tag you in everything. We can tag you on every bit of
we would
social media
love to talk to you just for 5 minutes, man. Just give us kind of your recollection of King of the Hill, and maybe you can give us some insight on maybe what's in the future.
Well, also a field trip to the college where the archives are. I'm still waiting.
Tell them about that real quick.
So there's a huge archive that Mike Judge dumped down in San Marcos, Texas, I believe is where the college is.
Texas State.
Texas State, yeah. So they have as much archival footage as anybody has, and it's not footage. It's scripts. It's paperwork. It's a lot of liner notes, things like that they have down there. So I'm going to try to get a hold of the college as soon as everything opens back up again in the new year, because we're recording in December 29th. So as soon as all the colleges are open back up in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try to contact them, and maybe we can get down there and
make a field trip.
And
that would be freaking awesome.
Go see what we can secure for season 1, and then maybe do it season by season.
We'll see. Yeah.
Go down there and collect what we need by season kind of thing, because they don't have information for every episode, I'm sure, but it would be cool to
it'd be cool to see what's there,
see what they have, and if we can capture all the information we can capture for season 1, and just have that information to add to each episode, I think would be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Okay, so just wrapping this thing up, my memories of King of the Hill, when it came on, I was running an internet service provider here in town, and I remember the thing came on, and I want to say it was like around Super Bowl time or something maybe, when this first episode dropped, and I just remember watching it and thinking...
Actually, the Super Bowl that year was on the 26th of January. I looked it up myself because usually when they air a new show on Fox... They always do it right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, almost all the networks do that.
This one was around the Super Bowl, but it wasn't.
So I just remember when it came on, telling the guy that I worked with, I was like, holy crap, that show feels like it was written for us. Because it very much felt like people I knew, places I knew, situations I knew.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can absolutely, I walked into my dad one time and he was frying sausage patties. In grease, so like there was about an inch of grease there, and so they were under the grease,
submerged.
He was deep frying sausage patties. That is not very far from a bacon sandwich with grease.
That was not far, not at all. Yeah. Because I mean, you got your own grease that the sausage makes, and then you put a layer of Crisco in there and frying it up. Yeah, you're gonna kill yourself.
Deep frying his sausage patties. So yeah, that's this show, and the thing about King of the Hill is I had forgotten how much this show means to me, and then just as a lark, kind of when you and I met, because of your avatar that you use, which is Dale, I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll try rewatching King of the Hill, and I'm telling you, since I started that, I haven't stopped. Like, I've gotten through the whole thing. But now I just kind of selectively pick and choose. It's become The Office. So The Office and King of the Hill are always on for me, for the most part.
I acquired all 13 episodes, so I'd have them
Seasons?
seasons. I acquired all 13 seasons, so I have like
I like the word acquired.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Oh yeah.
Nice job, Rusty.
Our matey, but
Nice job, Rusty.
I acquired some lumber.
Well, no, it makes it sound like maybe they weren't all bought.
Yeah. Sailing the high seas.
So when this debuted, where were you? What situation were you in?
1997. Okay, so I moved here to Waco in 96 from England.
From England.
Yeah. So we touched down in 96.
You were
September.
probably hyper aware of all of this, like Texas stuff.
Yeah. I was really like, well, I grew up with my dad. My dad's Texan, so
Right.
when the first 6 years of life, I walked around. My dad had cowboy boots, cowboy hat. He was Tex. You know what I mean? He was
Big Tex from the fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in England, that's what everybody knew him as. He was the big Texan guy. He was the big country guy. He was the wild. My mom had to send my cousin to go collect him one time, and he was at the grocery store, and there was like 15 cops surrounding him because they shut off one of the grocery lines while the store was busy, and they shut down one of the lines, and he was like, he started ranting and raving inside the store.
He said, "Tell me where a hammer is."
Yeah, tell me where a hammer is. And so my first really, so it airs in January, and I'm really big on TV at this point because I'm trying to understand a lot of the things that kids are interested in that I don't know.
Yeah.
So TV becomes a friend, whereas I don't have a lot of friends because I don't have a lot of relatable experiences to a lot of kids at this point because I grew up in in England. It was a neighborhood with 60 houses on one side of the street and 60 houses on the other side of the street. You could slap your neighbor's door.
Right.
So it was
not
more
that way
community,
here.
and it's not. It was
Not at all.
I didn't feel like. It didn't feel as the community felt different. It was a community feel, but it was a different feeling as I could go down the street and I didn't have to have my mom holding my hand to go knock on somebody's door or anything.
Sure.
I didn't have to go ask permission to go hang out 5 houses down. I just walked down there kind of thing. So it was this new dynamic for me, and TV is really where I learned a lot of that dynamic, like American culture. So people think that moving from England to America is not a huge cultural shift, but it is. It was a big cultural shift.
I bet it is.
It was a really big cultural shift, especially for a 6-year-old.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because the cartoons are different than everybody likes. I like, all these cartoons that these kids have never even heard of and still to this day have never watched, don't understand none of it.
Over there,
so,
I don't know if people know, but over there you have Thomas the Tank Engine and Static. Those are the two choices you had. Right?
Well, no, you would think so, but no, we had like Thomas the Tank Engine.
It's just
There
a
was
joke.
Postman Pat, Fireman Sam. I mean, we had some good stuff.
Yeah,
There was actually some really, really weird TV.
They are a little weirder.
If you pull some of the
with their
TV
stuff.
from like the 80s,
Yeah.
like some of the puppet shows and stuff they had, some of them were really thrown off. Like it kind of reminds me of the Bananas in Pajamas or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they had a lot of weird stuff like that I remember as a kid.
Teletubbies was not a stretch for you.
No, Teletubbies was not a stretch.
Yeah.
Teletubbies was actually a fan favorite. Yeah. My little sister was old. I wasn't old enough for Teletubbies, but I used to watch it with her, and I was like, this is almost psychedelic to watch.
Yeah, it was weird. The sun smiling at you and stuff. All right, man. Well, we got a lot of episodes to go, but this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this adventure. Yeah. It's going to be great.
Each time we will recap a King of the Hill episode. Next up is episode 2, season 1.
Square Peg.
Square Peg.
Yep.
All right, guys. Y'all take it easy, and you can find us at roguemedianetwork.com.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.